The lecture had just ended, and the students filed out of the room, their minds buzzing with the implications of what they had just learned. Some of them had been skeptical at first, dismissing the idea that human diplomacy could be so dangerous. But now, after hearing it all from the instructor, who had seen firsthand the brutal consequences of underestimating humans, the reality of it all was starting to sink in. Among the students, a young diplomat in training named Thaylor couldn't shake off the weight of what he had just heard. As a member of the Ukti species, he had always been taught to be pragmatic, to approach alliances and conflicts with a cool, calculating mindset. But now, he couldn't help but wonder if his species had made a grave mistake. The humans weren't just another species to be dealt with diplomatically. They were something else entirely, a force of nature, driven by instincts far deeper than simple logic or reason. What if the debt they spoke of wasn't just an abstract concept, but something far more dangerous? What if the humans weren't done settling old scores? Thaler knew his people had worked with humans in the past, offering aid during their early rebellion against the Goral Kroll, and in return, the humans had helped the Ukti when their own planet was on the brink of collapse. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that the nature of human help was always transactional. The humans had repaid the Ukti's assistance, but they had done so in ways that surpassed all expectations, creating a debt that was now far too deep to ignore. Could the Ukti ever truly be free of it? And if they couldn't, what did that mean for their future? He wasn't the only one with doubts. Another student, Zetha, an Andari diplomat, had been quiet throughout the lecture, her normally sharp features now clouded with uncertainty. The Andari were known for their patience and understanding, traits that made them invaluable in times of peace negotiations. But Zetha was struggling to reconcile the human way of thinking with her own deeply rooted beliefs in harmony. The humans didn't just seek balance. They demanded retribution when wronged, and that was something the Andari couldn't fathom. She knew she had to stay objective, but the stories of the human revenge in the lecture felt too real to ignore. The Goral Kroll, the Federation's other fallen members, they were all casualties of this intense drive for justice. Was there any peace to be had with a species so focused on vengeance? The rest of the class didn't seem to share Thaylor and Zetha's unease. Many of them seemed energized, even excited by the prospect of working with the humans. They saw potential. The humans had a unique drive to succeed, a relentless energy that was unmatched by any other species in the galaxy. If one could harness that energy, the rewards could be immense. The instructor had warned them about the dangers of exploiting humans, but most of the students seemed to believe that they could avoid those risks. With the right strategy, they could form alliances, negotiate their way to prosperity, and perhaps even use human ingenuity to outmaneuver their rivals. But as Thaler walked through the corridors of the school, his mind was already spinning with the possible consequences. He had a bad feeling about where this was all going. He had learned enough about human history to know that they never truly forgot a debt. If their evolutionary programming dictated that they repay those who had helped them, then what would happen if their debt was never fully satisfied? And more importantly, what would happen if the humans ever felt betrayed or abandoned by those they had helped? The tension was already starting to build. Thaler could feel it in the air, like a storm cloud gathering on the horizon. The diplomatics world was beginning to change. For decades, the Ukti had relied on their status within the Federation to maintain peace and order. They had dealt with the humans as an up-and-coming species, one that was still finding its place in the galaxy. But now, the humans were no longer a species to be managed. They were a force to be reckoned with, and Thaler wasn't sure his people were prepared for what that might mean. In the weeks that followed, tensions only escalated. The Ukti, along with several other species, had been negotiating a new treaty with the humans. On the surface, it was an agreement that promised cooperation, trade, and mutual protection, but behind closed doors, some of the Ukti leadership were already starting to question whether it was wise to trust the humans completely. They had seen how quickly the humans could turn the tide in battle, and they had heard the rumors of human vengeance. Some feared that the treaty might be nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to bring the Ukti into their fold, to repay that long-standing debt with interest. Thaler found himself caught between his duty to his people and the growing suspicion that the humans had an agenda of their own. He had always believed in the principles of diplomacy, talking, negotiating, finding common ground, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more at play, something darker beneath the surface. And then there was the issue of the Goral Crawl. The Federation had thought they had wiped out the threat, but rumors were circulating that the Goral Crawl had not been fully eradicated. Some said they had gone underground, regrouping in secret, plotting their return. If they came back, the humans would likely feel compelled to seek vengeance, and the Ukti could find themselves caught in the middle. As the days turned into weeks, the diplomatic talks grew more strained. At the center of it all was the looming question: would the humans honor their agreements, or would their need for revenge, their deeply ingrained sense of justice, force them to act in ways that no one could predict? And if the humans decided to take matters into their own hands, what would the consequences be for the entire galaxy? Thaler couldn't ignore the growing sense of dread. He knew that the coming days would be critical. It wasn't just about trade deals or alliances anymore. It was about survival. The humans weren't just participants in the galactic system anymore. They were changing the game. And soon, the entire galaxy would have to decide whether to join them or to risk incurring their vengeance. As he sat in his quarters, staring out into the vastness of space, Thaler felt the weight of history pressing down on him. Whatever happened next would change everything. Thaler sat alone in his dimly lit quarters, staring at the stars that flickered like distant memories beyond the window. The calm, endless expanse of space did little to soothe his thoughts. The weight of the recent lectures, the mounting diplomatic tensions, and his own growing suspicions swirled in his mind. It wasn't just the humans that he feared now. It was what the entire galaxy was becoming. The political landscape was shifting, and all he could do was watch as the pieces slowly moved into place. Uncertain of who would come out on top, the Ukti had always prided themselves on their wisdom and restraint. But now, with the humans emerging as a powerful force, those ideals seemed like relics of a bygone era. Diplomacy, once the hallmark of the Ukti, now felt like a fragile illusion, one that could shatter at any moment. Thaler had always believed that the key to peace was mutual understanding, but the reality was becoming painfully clear. The humans didn't operate like other species. They didn't just seek balance. They sought something deeper, something rooted in their evolutionary need for retribution and survival. Thaler's thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime at the door. His mentor, a seasoned diplomat named Vayner, entered without waiting for a response. Her face was hard to read, but her eyes, sharp and calculating, betrayed a mixture of concern and determination. She had always been the one to guide him, teaching him how to navigate the delicate webs of intergalactic politics. But now, even Vayner seemed uneasy. "Thaler," she began, her voice low, "have you been following the latest developments? The humans. They've escalated." Thaler nodded, unable to hide the tension in his expression. "I know. The talks. Everything is becoming more complicated by the day. We can't ignore the way they operate anymore. It's not just about trade or defense anymore. They're building something bigger, something we may not be ready for. Vena paced the room, her thoughts clearly racing. The Ukti are trying to balance the equation. But the humans, they don't care about balance. They care about outcomes. And they will do whatever it takes to get what they believe is owed. Thala felt a chill run through him. But what if we can't pay them back? What if this debt? It's too much for us to ever repay. Vena stopped in her tracks, turning to face him. Her expression softened. Then we risk everything. They will take what they feel is rightfully theirs, Thalor. And there will be no second chances. The gravity of her words settled on him like a weight, heavier than the silence that followed. There was no easy way out of this. The Ukti were caught between two worlds. On one hand, they needed the humans' technological prowess and strength. But on the other, they were bound by the looming debt that was growing ever harder to escape. In the days that followed, Thaler found himself in the midst of a delicate political struggle. The Ukti leadership was split. Some argued that the only way to move forward was to embrace the humans fully, to make reparations and form a more solid alliance. Others, including some of the younger diplomats, were more skeptical, fearing that the humans would only use this opportunity to further their own agenda, leaving the Ukti in a position of vulnerability. Meanwhile, whispers of discontent were growing within the ranks of the Federation. Not all species were as willing to embrace the humans as the Ukti were. The Etherians, a warlike species known for their aggression, had long viewed humans with distrust. They saw their rise as a threat to the status quo and were already calling for a more forceful response. In private meetings, Etherian leaders spoke of preparing for war, knowing that once the humans fully realized their power, it would be too late to contain them. Thaler knew that war could be inevitable. His instincts told him that the situation was teetering on the edge, and one misstep could trigger a conflict that would engulf the entire galaxy. But how could the Ukti prepare for such a conflict when they were so deeply entangled with the humans? Every decision they made would have consequences, and Thaler couldn't escape the feeling that they were running out of time. As the tension reached a boiling point, an unexpected development shook the diplomatic community to its core. A fleet of human ships appeared at the edge of Ukti space, silent and unyielding, their intentions unclear. The humans hadn't made a formal announcement, nor had they communicated their purpose. It was a move that spoke louder than words, was a demonstration of their power, their ability to act without warning or explanation. For the first time, the Ukti were being forced to reckon with the fact that they were not in control of the situation anymore. The humans were setting the terms. Thaler was summoned to a high-level meeting, one that would determine the course of action for the Ukti. As he entered the war room, he saw the faces of his fellow diplomats. Some were tense, others nervous, and a few were outright defiant. The air was thick with uncertainty, and the stakes had never been higher. Vena, standing at the front, addressed the assembly. "We've been given a choice," she said, her voice steady, but not without a trace of apprehension. "We can either move forward with the humans, fully embracing their demands, or we can stand our ground and risk everything. I don't need to tell you what the consequences could be if we choose the latter. We're no longer in a position of power." Thaler's heart raced as he processed the weight of her words. He had never imagined that his species, his people, would be in such a vulnerable position. But now, with the human shadow hanging over them, it seemed that all their diplomatic efforts, all their carefully laid plans, were at the mercy of a species that had proven time and time again that they would stop at nothing. to get what they believed they were owed. The room fell silent as everyone waited for the next move. Outside, the human fleet hovered, a silent reminder of the pressure mounting on the Ukti. Thaler felt the tension in his chest, the same feeling he had when he realized that no matter how much he prepared, some battles were already lost before they even began. The humans had made their move. Now the Ukti had to decide, would they submit or would they risk everything for their independence? The answer would shape the future of the galaxy. The stakes were higher than ever, and Thaler knew the next few days would be critical. The countdown had begun, and there was no turning back now. The tension in the room was unbearable. Thaler's mind raced as he listened to the debates around him. The Ukti leaders were split, with some calling for an immediate, aggressive response to the humans' fleet, while others urged caution. But there was no denying the reality of the situation. The humans were no longer just a potential ally or a force to be reckoned with. They were the galaxy's new power, and the Ukti, along with everyone else, had to decide whether they would bend to their will or face the consequences. Vena spoke, again, her voice unshakable. This is our moment, Thaler. We can either face them with dignity and negotiate the terms that will keep us intact, or we can stand firm in our independence and risk total annihilation. This isn't just about the Ukti anymore. This is about the future of every species in the Federation. As the words hung in the air, something unexpected happened. The communication system flickered, and a transmission came through, a direct message from the humans themselves. The room fell silent as the image of a human officer appeared on the screen. His face was calm, but his eyes held something deeper, a strange mix of resolve and something almost remorseful. Ukti Diplomatic Council, the human officer began. I am Commander Jace Alston. I've been ordered to deliver a message, one that goes beyond politics or military strategy. The humans owe you nothing, but we remember what you did for us all. Those years ago, we know the debt was never truly settled. And we are here to repay that debt, not because we have to, but because it's who we are. Thaler's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't what he had expected. The humans had never been so transparent before. What did they mean by this? Was it a trap? Were they manipulating the Ukti into compliance? The human officer continued. But this time, we are offering something more. Something that will change everything for your people and for every other species in the galaxy. We are offering you a choice. Join us. Truly join us. As equals. Let the Ukti lead alongside the humans. Not as subordinates. Not as pawns in a game, but as partners. We are not demanding servitude. We are offering collaboration. The wars of the past, the debts, the vengeance, those things are over. We're building something new, and we want you by our side. The room was silent as the message ended, and Thaler could feel the weight of his next decision pressing down on him like a suffocating force. What the humans were offering wasn't just an alliance. It was a shift in the very structure of the galaxy, a chance for the Ukti to stand beside them, to be a part of something far greater than anyone could have imagined. But there was a risk, wasn't there? Could the Ukti truly trust the humans to follow through on this new vision? Or would they eventually be left behind once again? Before he could process it fully, Vena turned to him, her face reflecting the same inner conflict he felt. The humans are offering us something none of us expected. A future, a place in their new order. But it's not just a gift, Thaler. They're asking for something in return. Our loyalty, our trust. And maybe, just maybe, they're asking for something deeper than that. A new kind of unity. One built on the understanding that we are all flawed, that we all carry the weight of our past actions, They're not offering us salvation, Thaler. They're offering us redemption. Thaler's mind spun. Redemption, he had never thought of it that way. The humans were not offering a simple political agreement. They were offering a chance to atone, to move beyond the mistakes of the past. Could the Ukti truly let go of their old ways and embrace this new path? Could they put their trust in the humans, knowing that they themselves were not perfect, that they too had made their own mistakes? As the days passed, the pressure mounted. The Ukti leaders convened again, but this time there was no heated argument. Instead, the room was filled with a quiet tension, as if everyone knew what needed to be done, but feared the consequences of acting. Thaler felt his own resolve growing stronger. He had spent so much of his life trying to predict the future, trying to control the flow of diplomacy, but the humans had shown him something different. Maybe it was time for the Ukti to let go of their old way of thinking. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could find redemption, not in a debt repaid, but in a new beginning. And then it happened. The Ukti leaders, united by a single vision, made their decision. They would accept the humans' offer, not because they had no other choice, but because they realized that the old ways of doing things were no longer enough. The galaxy was changing, and the Ukti had to change with it. There would be no more debts to settle, no more vengeance to seek. The future was about collaboration, about building something greater than the sum of their parts. The moment the announcement was made, Thaler felt a strange sense of relief. It wasn't just the end of the conflict. It was the beginning of something new. The Ukti and humans would move forward together, hand in hand, building a new era of peace and understanding. And though there would still be challenges ahead, Thaler knew that this was the right path. They had chosen redemption over revenge, cooperation over competition, and for the first time in his life, he felt hopeful about the future. As he stood outside the council chamber, looking up at the stars, he realized that the universe was vast and unpredictable. But maybe, just maybe, there was hope for it yet. A new chapter had begun, not just for the Ukti or the humans, but for all the species in the galaxy. A chapter where the past would no longer dictate the future, and where the true power of diplomacy, of understanding and forgiveness, would shape the destiny of all. The debt was paid, the vengeance was forgotten, and for the first time, peace seemed like more than just a distant dream. It was a reality, one they had fought for, together.